Hey, I'm back, and today I want to do part 2 of my epic drum tutorial. If you haven't checked out the first part, please do because everything I'm going to talk about today is built off of that. So that said, let's get started. I'm going to open up Empower Synth here and look in here, Epic Vid Sound. That's what I had from before. So if I just play it normally, that's way too high. Let me move down the keyboard and play it here on a A. So as you can hear, that sounds better, and it's kind of like a tom sound. But I want to change this so it's not really a tom sound. So in the first part, I showed you how you could do things like if you changed this filter so the decay is at a different time, it changes the sound. So if I do this, but then I change it a little shorter. Where did I have it? About here. So as you change that, that can be one way you can change the sound. You can also mess with the frequency, the resonance, and all those things will change the sound, and also the amount of noise. But I went over that basically in the first video. Other things you can change is the EQ, which I also went over in the video, cut off some of the bass so it's not quite so bassy. Usually when it comes out, I don't know what happens to the low mids and the bass, but it doesn't sound quite right. But today I'm going to show you how to do this to make the bass sound better. And instead of this tom sound, I want to get that big bass drum explosion, epic drop sound. I don't know that's how you how you explain it, but I think you get the idea. So first thing I want to do is I want to use a new plugin actually. So let me move this down and I'm going to move things around because I want this EQ someplace else. Move the saturator to be first, and if you listen to it, it sounds exactly the same. Reordering things doesn't really change the sound too much, but this will change the sound. So let's open this up, and I'm going to use a newly released plugin. This is Bassador or Ambassador. So basically what this is, it's similar to Waves like Rin bass or Max bass and Low Air put together in one plugin. It's released in like the last month or so, and I think it's a fairly affordable price. But if you have Empower Synth, you can just, it comes with it, so that's great. But if you don't, you can pick that up yourself, or you could use Waves if you want to get the two versions. But this is more convenient, in my opinion, because instead of using two plugins, you can just use one. So let's see what it does. So at first, this is with nothing on. If I click on this bass, I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I'm pretty sure it kind of distorts it and adds a little bit more body to the sound. So here's off, on. So you can hear like, wow, that's really getting bassy. But now let's turn the sub on. Now it's really getting bassy. Hopefully I'm not clipping. But here's another thing with the EQ. Now I have it here at 83. Let's move it down to around like 50. I want to hear more of that bass. And let's change the slope instead of 24 decibels per octave, 36 decibels per octave. So let's hear it now. Let me move the gain down a little bit just to make sure. And if I wanted to, I could use sub 2 so I could hear even like 2 octaves down, but for this I don't need it. It's already going deep enough. So I think overall this is a big enough change. But the second thing I want to do is here I had this the fifth band, and I had it like emphasizing the attack, but I don't really want that for this sound. I want it to sound like it's far away, and I want it to be like that rumbling sound. So take this off, and in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a low pass filter here. It's 6 decibels per octave, so it's a fairly low slope, or fairly it's not steep. Sorry, forgot English for a second. Here we go. Okay, I think you probably heard a little bit of clicking there. I'm sorry about that. My computer's glitching out. But you can hear it's a completely different sound now. You don't hear that high-end snap, but you do hear that low-end rumble. And let's change the convolution too, because here, one thing I want to do is I want to take out some of that low end because it's going to get too rumbly in there. So I'll do the same thing here. Take this 24 decibels per octave. So this just takes out the low end on the reverb. I'll let you hear it as I move it. Set it somewhere around like 100, maybe a little bit less, so that way you don't have that low rumbling and it won't take up too much space, but you can kind of do that by ear. And another thing I want to do is I want to change this impulse response. This is good, but I think I want something different. Let's try impulse 2, and let's change this to around 40%. Now let's see what it sounds like. Okay, that's what I want. That kind of really low explosion sound, you know, you hear that and it's like, whoa, what happened? So that's what I'm trying to design. So far this is good, and really I would probably be satisfied just with this, but let's not be satisfied. Let me show you some other things you can do. So after you do that, let's try adding a delay. Go in here, add the delay, turn this resonance off. I don't need that. I'll go here and let's sync this up to the tempo. Let's try quarter notes. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, so that's way too loud, number one. But actually, I don't think it's actually so loud. It has too much top end and probably too much bottom end. So let's take off the bottom end starting at 90 because I don't need that rumbling delays. And let's take off the top end because you don't want it to be so prominent. You want it to sound like it's echoing off like a hall or something. So let's try like 4,000 something. Let's try this. That's sounding pretty good to me, but one thing that could help it is let's put it in stereo. So you see this left offset? Let's move that by like 5 or 7. So that means the left side will be 5 or 7.3 milliseconds early off a quarter note, and move this to 7.3 forward. So that'll be 7.3 milliseconds after the other a quarter note. So let's hear it now. So hopefully with that, you should be hearing like more of a stereo sound, which is what we want. So that's good. But you don't always want that. There's other things we can do. So let's say you don't want that. Let's say another cool thing that sometimes I hear is, let's say a tremolo. So let's go here to this tremolo effect. I know it sounds stupid. It's like, what are you talking about? Why is there tremolos in this? But when you hear it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So here's a ratio. This kind of splits it. I'll move here so it's sidechain 2. So now, turn this off. So basically I have one input going through all this stuff into this, and then another one, let me move this here, going from the convolution to the tremolo and back into the ratio, and I can switch them. But let's hear what the tremolo does. So oh, sorry, not the gain. I almost blew your ears out. I'm sorry. Move the ratio. So now we're just going to hear the tremolo by itself. I'll sync this up to, let's say, eighth notes. Actually, no, do quarter notes. And do rectangle, set the depth all the way up, and we should hear it kind of like go in and out like a tremolo effect. Actually, let me do faster. I'll do eighth notes. So I'm sure you kind of heard that effect before. So I like that, but there's other things we can do. Let's set it at 50% so you can hear it with the actual hit. So that's good, but the only thing I don't like is it's not always synced up. So sometimes when I hit the key, I'm hearing like my volume go down because it's in this trough area as opposed to the area where you can actually hear it. So we can kind of fix that though. Like one thing I can do is this depth. This controls how deep it is. So if I go to mod here, click learn, go all the way down. Now it's moving by an LFO, which is not helpful at all. But what is helpful is if I go to an envelope here. Let's set this at a delay of 140. Let's turn the sustain all the way off. And let's turn the decay up to, I guess it's about impulse response reverb is about like 2 seconds. So let's go around 2 seconds. And now when I do this, it should start with no tremolo and then go into tremolo as the sound develops, and then it should gradually fade out. So let's look at the depth here. So of course there's all sorts of things I can do with that. I can also sync it up to, like, let's see, straight, okay. So this depth, do there, the attack. Let me hold it a little bit, and decay, like that. So this maybe is better. So you can hear it kind of fade in. So that's one cool thing you can do, but let's try something else also. Instead of the tremolo effect, what I might want to use is an auto pan. Okay, well, let me turn it off first. Auto pan. Oh, and I should say, if you're thinking like, where am I going to get all these effects? If you go to Melda's website, the auto pan and the tremolo are both free. So, and also the EQ and the saturator. So not everything in here you can get for free, but lots of things you can. So don't think you have to spend lots of money to get these. And if you're thinking like, how am I supposed to do this if I don't have Power Synth? Like, I can't do this with my synthesizer. Instead of using this second lane, use a bus track. So I have a master here, but use like synth bus or something like that, and then have the sound sent from Power Synth to your bus, and that will like help things. But you don't have the ratio, so you have to blend it yourself. But let's check out pan, auto pan. Let me slow it down also. I'll do the same thing. Enable it, do like eighth notes. Actually, let me do fourth notes, quarter notes, sorry. And turn the depth all the way up, and let's hear it. Turn the gain down, I'm clipping a little bit. So you can really hear that. Let me turn all the way to the auto pan so you can hear what it's doing. Set it someplace in the middle. So that's kind of a cool effect, and you can do the same thing with that as I did with the tremolo effect if you want to hear that first initial transient. So that's a cool thing, and there's all sorts of things you can do by messing with this on a parallel track or a bus, I should say. So you can like distort it, you can do all sorts of modulation effects and cool things to get like an interesting tail besides like a normal decay. But let's do one more thing. I'll show you one more cool thing, maybe a modern sound, you should say, or I should say. So let's use a comb filter, which I usually don't use. I'll move it here. Oh, I don't want feedback, sorry. Input 1. There we go. So when I do this, it's going to produce a somewhat annoying sound. Let me make sure this is even lower. And it's gonna sound almost like a string or like a spring being hit, but there's a cool thing you can do with it. So let me just demonstrate it like this. But if you move this down to like, let's say around like 40 or 30, it starts becoming a more familiar sound. A little bit lower. Okay, so this is a sound probably familiar to some people and maybe you like, so lots of movies. Let's turn this down a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be playing around so much. But that kind of deep sound, that kind of deep metal sound, it sounds really modern to me. So like you'd hear that in a movie like during a drop or something. But you can mess around with the different frequencies. I find around between like 40 and maybe like 12 or so to be like good numbers. 12 is a little bit too low, sorry. Try 14. That's still good, I think. So those numbers are really cool, and I think that kind of gives you a modern sound. Feel free to mess with the ratio too. So if you think like, I want more of that sound, or I want a little bit less, you can set it however you like it. And another thing you can do is mess with here the max frequency. So if you don't want as much high end, and also the feedback will change things. That's a bit much, but I think around 50% is good. So if I was doing it, I'd probably set it like that. So, and I think I just clipped it a little bit too. I apologize for all this clipping. I'm going nuts here. I'm hitting things too hard. But hopefully that gives you some ideas of things you can do, and you can always do things with the delay too. I could add the delay here, or I actually even add it afterwards if I wanted to. Let me see. Let's try it. So that sounds like something like maybe you'd hear on some scary soundtrack or something like that. And to be honest, I don't know exactly how they're doing those sounds, and I have a feeling it's probably not this. I imagine they're probably sampling something like a spring or something like that. But I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to probably experiment with more comb filters in the future. So I'm going to do more of this series. I think I'll probably try to do maybe 4 parts of this series. So in the next video, part 3, I'll go over how to layer these and make this synth better for layering. So you can use like 4 instances or 5 instances all together. And I'll also go over like how to make sequences using these drum sounds so you can make interesting patterns. Similar to, if you know Hans Zimmer's was like HZ Zebra, that dark zebra expansion they have. Similar sounds to that. And then the last part, I'll show you how to put these sounds in a sampler and use them as samples. But until then, like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share it, all that good stuff. And until next time, see you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that video, please remember to thumbs it up, check out some of my other videos below, and don't forget, subscribe. Thanks. Bye.